Right, this is the 6-5 notes. It's pretty much the same thing, except instead of giving the equations, we're given a word problem, and we have to write out the equation. So it's really not too difficult as long as you can make sure that you label your variables correctly and you keep up with what you label. So, first one says at a hockey game, a vendor sold a combined total of 243 sodas and hot dogs. The number of sodas sold was 2 times the number of hot dogs sold. Find the number of sodas and the number of hot dogs sold. So you have two things here. You have hot dogs and you have sodas. So you have a total of 243 of these. So what we're going to do is we don't know how many little hot dogs and sodas we have. So we're going to say x plus y is equal to, well, how many of them did we have total? We had 243. The second equation, because every single one of these you're going to have two equations, the second equation comes from the second sentence. It says the number of sodas sold. So I'm going to just call this y because it makes it the easiest equation. Was, so there's equals, 2 times the number of hot dogs sold. So I'm going to put 2x. So there's my second equation. Y is equal to 2x. Okay, now remember, in order to put this into your matrix that we've been doing, you have to have your x's and your y's lined up with your constants. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this 2x over, so you have y minus 2x is equal to 0. Okay, but remember, x's come first. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2x plus y is equal to 0. Okay, so you have x, the y, constant. So now I can go ahead and put this in my little matrices. So my constants for the first equation, so I'm looking over here, the first one would be 1, 1, 243. My constants for the second one would be a negative 2, a 1, and a 0. So you see how the x's are your first columns, y's are your second, and your constants are your third. Okay, so you put this in your second matrix, which you might have to pause this video because I'm not going to go through all those steps. But you put in the second matrix and then you type it all in. Then you go back and you do the math and do the letter B for the R, R, E, F. Go back to your matrix to get the letter A because that's where you typed in all these numbers. And then once you hit enter on your screen, remember it always says go 1001. If it doesn't, you know you did something wrong. And the numbers you should get are 81 and 162. Okay, so what this means is that x is equal to 81 and your y is equal to 162. But that's not what it's asking. The question's not saying, hey, what's x, what's y? It says, what's the number of hot dogs sold and sodas that were sold? Okay, well, if you look back in your problem, all right, and I'll highlight this. Okay, so if you have x is equal to 81, and you had over here 2 times the number of hot dogs sold, and we had that labeled as x, well then that means that x is going to be our hot dogs. So we sold 81 hot dogs. Okay, and the other one that we had, we have y is equal to 162. Well, if you look back in the problem, what we had labeled as y, okay, we had these sodas were labeled as y. So back over here, that means you sold 162 sodas. And you can even double check, make sure, add up those two numbers. They give you 243. Did you sell twice the number of sodas as you did hot dogs? Well, 81 doubled is 162, so that is correct. All right, number 2 says the sum of two numbers is 54 and the difference is 22. What are the numbers? This one's a little bit easier. You have two numbers, and when you add them up, because that's what sum is 54. So x plus y is equal to 54. And your second equation, it says the difference, okay, is 22. So x minus y is 22. You don't have to do any rearranging because it's already lined up x, y constant. So you have 1, 1, 54. And you have 1, negative 1, and 22. So when we put this in your matrix C, it comes out to 1001, and the numbers here are 38 and 16. So the question says, what are your two numbers? Well, your two numbers are 38 and 16. And you can even double check, add up the numbers. Does it give you 54? Yes, it does. Subtract the two numbers. Does it give you 22? It does. So you're done there. All right, number 3, at a basketball game, vendor sold a combined total of 158 sodas and hot dogs. So again, you have a total So many sodas, so many hot dogs. When you add those up, it gives you 158. Then it says the number of hot dogs sold. So I'm going to call that Y. So Y is equal to, there's your was, 54 less than the number of sodas. Now remember, when you have that word less than, we have to flip-flop this. Okay, and I don't know how many sodas there are, so that's X minus 54. So I have Y equals X minus 54. So again, we're going to have to rewrite this equation. Okay, because remember, we need X's and Y's to be on the same side. So you have Y minus X is equal to negative 54. If you rearrange that, because X has to go first, to be negative X plus Y is equal to negative 54. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put that into your matrix. So you would have 1, 1, 158, and you would have negative 1, 1, negative 54. When you put that in your matrix, it should come out to 1, 0, 0, 1, and my two numbers here would be 106 and 52. Okay, so again, what this means is X is equal to 106 and Y is equal to 52. Okay, but you got to see what is X and what is Y. Well, look back in your equation. Over here, we had the Y was your hot dogs. So you have 52 hot dogs. And your X, what we had over here, okay, was the number of sodas. So what we have, let me write this, is that we would have 106 sodas and 52 hot dogs. Okay, we got two more. 1 month, Donna rented 8 movies and 4 video games for a total of $41. The next month, she rented 3 movies and 2 video games for a total of $18. Find the rental cost for each movie and each video game. So our two things here that we have are going to be movies and video games. So you just write it like you see in the sentence. 8x plus 4y is equal to 41. 3x plus 2y is equal to 18. Put this in your little matrix. So we have 8, 4, and 41. We have 3, 2, and 18. So that should come out to 1, 0, 0, 1. And the numbers for this were 2.5 and 5.25. Okay, so what that means is that X is equal to 2.5 and Y is equal to 5.25. But it didn't say what is X and what is Y. It said find the rental cost for each movie and each video game. Okay, so the movies, if you look, okay, so here's my X. My movies line up with the 8X and 3X. Well, what was 8X and what was 3X? That was your movies. So it cost for a movie, it was $2.50. Okay, so again, if you look, you have Y was 5.25. My Y's were lined up with the numbers 4 and 2. Well, 4 video games, 2 video games. So for a video game, it costs $5.25. Again, you can always plug these numbers into the equations we came up with to make sure those are correct. All right, last one. It says a party rental company has chairs and tables for rent. The total cost to rent 8 chairs and 3 tables is $44, and the total cost to rent 2 chairs and 5 tables is $45. What is the cost to rent each chair and each table? So same thing here. You have 8 chairs, you have 3 tables, it's $44. You have 2 chairs and 5 tables, and that's $45. So we're going to plug this into our matrix. So we have 8, 3, 44. We have 2, 5, and 45. Plug that in. When it should come out to 1, 0, 0, 1. And my numbers here are 2.5 and 8. So again, that means X is equal to 2.5 and Y is equal to 8. But you have to make sure you know what you're talking about. So you need to go back and look. So you have X is equal to 2.5. So X I have beside 8 and 2. Well, what was 8 and 2? It was 8 chairs and 2 chairs. So X represents, okay, so X is going to be, I'm not going to write that. The 2.5 then is chairs. So for a chair, it costs $2.50 to rent. Okay, and then again, if we look, we have y is equal to 8. Well, what was y? You had 3y and 5y. Well, what is y? Well, that's 3 tables and that's 5 tables. So for a table, it costs $8. And that makes sense because if it costs more to rent a chair than it does a table, you know there's something wrong. Okay, so just think about your answers, and you can always plug in 250 and $8 into the equation and back into your word problem, and make sure that it came out to $44 and $45. All right, and so that is it.